This is the best.
Do you hear me?
Of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
And welcome, and what a day this is going to be. A lot of important stories to deal with some great guests and also some breaking news. And stop me if you have seen this headline before. Let's go to Knoxville, and there's another shakeup on Rocky Top. Tennessee, and amid reports of Davenport firing, Tennessee plans a statement. You're asking the question, who is Davenport? She is Beverly Davenport, chancellor, officially installed on February 15th last year. She made the decision shortly after getting the job to bypass Philip Fulmer, instead hired John Curry. That turned out to be a disaster. She fired Curry in December, hired Fulmer second go-around, and according to reports, she is now out after 1 year and 3 months on the job. Miami ought to lend Tennessee the turnover chain because there is enough turnover there to set a Guinness Book of World Records. Let's continue. Meanwhile, ESPN has just announced with the college football world that the new bowl is out, bowl schedule is out, and the playoff games will be earlier this year than ever before. They'll be on a Saturday. It won't be New Year's Eve either, the 29th. So, finally, a good day for... Remember when Bill Hancock tried to sell us that bill of goods on how great New Year's Eve was? Yeah, thanks, Bill. Meanwhile, football coaches unanimously vote to support a new transfer rule concept. We'll talk about it later on with one of our special guests. Speaking of that, Shea Patterson, why he chose Michigan. This according to a Michigan report, of course. He said, I would have stayed at Ole Miss if it weren't for the situation we were in. I can live with throwing an interception in the national championship game or to get there in the playoff. It might be hard to live with that, but I don't know if I could have lived with not being able to get the chance to compete for one. In other words, no bowl game last year, probably no bowl game this year. We get it, Shea. Good luck. Meanwhile, Alabama at number one in the post-spring top 25, that according to Mark Schlabach. Man, that's a surprising story. And we welcome you to another day. It is the middle of the week. We'll reveal our own power rankings a little bit later on. A lot to do on the program today. Michael Collins. You ever met Michael? He's the crazy guy that you see on SportsCenter Sunday morning, Saturday morning, reporting live from golf tournaments. We'll give you his backstory today. He was a caddy once, and before that, he was a comedian. He's still a comedian. He just plays one on TV. Mark Schlabach and Heather Dinnich will join us later on to explain the new transfer rule. I can't wait because I don't understand it myself. And, of course, your phone calls at 855-242-7285. And we are going to make a vow today. Everybody is going to be happy. No bickering, no swearing, no name-calling, talking about how the show used to be. And the reason why things are going to be good today, every day we go into the booth and there's Kubiak, there's Hayes. Guess what? Both are gone. A new era begins with Danny Bram and Randy Harris. Congratulations to both of you guys.
What's up, Finebaum crew? History being made here.
Thank you.
First time this duo has been here in the booth. So
yeah, cool. We're going to crush it today. We're all about pleasing the viewer, pleasing the callers. It's going to be a friendly show.
In fact, if you look, we've got a headline. If you throw it up there, this is our bonus headline. Here it comes in a second. There you go.
Yeah.
Finebaum producers replaced. We've suspended John Hayes for just blatant rudeness and just a bad general disposition.
John called out a bunch of callers the other day, and by the way, suspension may not be the correct word for it.
Yeah, it's still under debate. Things are pending. Coobs, he's been missing all week.
Now Kubiak is out. He announced his retirement today.
He did. We'll see how today goes, but we're off to a great start.
I've got a statement here that I will release immediately on Instagram. We wish. Excuse me. Let me start over again. John and Mark have served us very well here over the last 5 years. We wish both of them the best in their future endeavors.
What you need to do is get the pro back into your producers, but now they're just deucers. You know what I mean?
Okay, let's get to the calls. All Positive Wednesday. 855-242-7285. Let's start with what I would consider to be one of the greatest callers in Finebaum, maybe the best caller in Finebaum Show history, even surpassing the unnamed Jim from Tuscaloosa. Blair is in Maine, and you are on the air.
What's going on, Paul? I appreciate it. Got to give the callers the respect they need, and
you bet.
People get the respect, and you give the respect back.
You got it.
And that's what you got to do when you guys are putting on the show.
What's the Bible verse?
You got the mic right there, so that's pretty much what's happening. Is you have the mic, so you say whatever you want to say, and you give us the respect, and I'll give you the respect back. Right?
I own this microphone.
You do, really,
but I'm going to share it with you today.
Yeah. So, anyways, I've been really dizzy lately, and I can't get this solved. I went to the ER, and they didn't solve it, so.
Hold on a second, Blair. You've been busy. You live in Maine. What have you been busy with?
Dizzy.
Oh, dizzy.
Dizziness.
Oh, what is it? Is it equilibrium? Is it ear problems? What's going on?
It's not ear problems. It's just
listen. I am not a doctor, although I live with one. Let me help diagnose you.
I stayed up real late playing a video game, and I experienced dizziness really bad playing my video game.
Okay, Blair, let me ask you a question. Allow me to ask a few questions?
Yeah.
How old are you?
28.
28.
I drink a lot of soda. I eat a lot of sweets.
Blair, I didn't ask you. Blair, so let's act like you're visiting the doctor here, Dr. Paul. I wonder if has there ever been anything like a Dr. Phil or a Dr. Yeah, Blair. So you're 28. What you're talking about? Soda, like pop, like soft drinks?
Yeah, a lot of I'm drinking soda right now. I should probably be drinking a lot of water.
What are you? What kind of soda are you drinking?
Diet Coke. A lot of Diet Coke.
Have you heard of Coke Zero?
Yeah.
Do they have that up in Maine?
It's not going to help.
Has it made it to Maine yet?
It's not going to help because I'm still dizzy right now.
Okay. Blair, I'm going to ask you to calm down. Okay, can you take a deep breath for me?
Yeah, I am. But
bring it in, let it out. Bring it in, let it out.
Why am I still dizzy at this young age? I should never be as dizzy as I am.
Blair, I'm the doctor. You're the patient. Shut up already. Okay. Blair, you haven't had any hearing problems, right?
No.
That can cause dizziness. Do you have any vision problems?
Vision, yeah.
Obviously, you're dizzy. That was a trick question.
I couldn't see my video game I was playing straight. I couldn't read the paper for the sports section.
Blair, you're getting upset.
Yeah, because I'm frustrated that I'm so dizzy.
Blair. What video game was it that you started noticing this dizziness?
I don't know. It could be staying up.
No, Blair, you're a terrible patient, by the way. Which video game were you playing when this all happened?
MLB The Show 17.
Okay. Are you? Do you have any? Do you have blood pressure issues? Do you have any? Are you diabetic? Are you?
Okay, so last time I went to the ER, they told me my blood pressure was high. I need to see a doctor.
Have you seen one?
No, my mom's still working on that.
Blair, how big a city do you live in?
It's not a big city. Like if you expect those big cities like Rancho Santa Margarita, Mission Viejo, or
Blair, I'm not asking for. This is not a geography class. Are you? You said you eat a lot of sweet. Blair, you said you eat a lot of sweets, right?
Yeah. It's not a good diet.
Blair,
not good.
In the course of a day, give me your caloric intake. What are you eating?
I'll eat like 3 or 4 bananas in a day.
You certainly don't have a potassium shortage.
I I know.
What do you eat for? What do you Blair? What do you eat for breakfast?
Is Paul a doctor?
Yes.
She even. I'm like, Mom. Okay.
No.
No, she doesn't want a part of this. But
Paul is not a doctor. Why did you call him? No one wants to know that. No one.
Paul.
I've already said that I am not a doctor,
okay,
but my
vertigo.
It's vertigo.
Vertigo. That's what it said. It's vertigo.
Hey, Mom! The meatloaf!
Hey, Blair, have you ever seen...
Because I have 2 yogurts a day, 2 puddings a day. I have too many sweets. I need to back out. I don't back out enough. There could be something wrong with me.
We want it now!
No.
Hey, Mom! Can we get some meatloaf?
But she gets in the middle of this.
Okay, Blair. Okay, Blair. Have you ever seen the movie Vertigo?
No.
Go see it. Call me tomorrow. Matt is up next in San Antonio. How, Matt? Hey, Matt. I'm dizzy now.
Today, Paul? That was an interesting phone call with that guy.
Matt, are you feeling okay?
Yeah, I'm feeling okay. I'm fine, Paul. I'm not like that guy.
I'm getting dizzy myself. Seriously, I'm not feeling well.
I hope you're doing okay.
Hey, Matt,
Paul.
if I ever ate 4 bananas in one day, I think I would be sick.
I agree with that. That guy was kind of material, be strange.
Yeah, that would be a good word. I think the most amazing thing was that his mother was surprised that I wasn't a doctor.
Yeah, you could say that.
Why would a doctor be hosting a sports show every afternoon?
You could say that. Why would he be?
He wouldn't be. That's really easy to figure out. Go ahead, Matt. Let's talk football.
Okay, I wanted to talk to you about Jimbo Fisher and the upcoming football season. But I have an interesting question for you, Paul, before I get started. I'm not trying to put you on the spot or anything like that.
Go ahead.
You must be a good friend, Paul.
I mean, I just had to perform the Hippocratic Oath a minute ago.
Okay. What year in 1963 were the two teams in Texas was going to postpone their game because President Kennedy got shot?
That would have been the Texas A&M game.
Yeah, I researched that. I actually learned about it.
Yeah, I mean, President Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas on November 22nd, 1963, and I think the game was that next day or the next week. I can't remember which one it was. Probably the next week. Okay. But anyway, that's interesting, Blair. That's fascinating.
Okay, and what I was going to talk to you about was, I think Jimbo Fisher this year, I know a lot of people, I call up and I say they're going to have a year poll, and I always say that. But this year, I think I'm going to be right because if you look at the teams that are playing this year, particularly Alabama, they don't have a very good secondary coming back this year, Paul, and we do. And if I'm Jimbo Fisher, you can actually exploit that, basically.
Good point. Listen, Matt, we'll talk more about that in the coming months. In the coming hours, we'll talk about a number of other things, including your phone calls at 855. No more doctor calls. My medical insurance will not cover it. 855-242-7285, and we are coming right back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome back to the program. Glad you're here. And we're taking your phone calls at 855-242-7285. Again, an update in a few minutes. More news coming out of Knoxville about Beverly Davenport, the chancellor apparently being replaced, not fired, reassigned. We will give you that story in just a moment. Matt is up next in Austin, Texas. What do you say, Matt?
Hey, Paul, how are you this afternoon?
We're doing great. Thanks for the call.
Well, I'm sorry that you guys didn't make the cut, apparently, to be with the Marty Party and traveling Jim Harbaugh over there. I guess.
Yeah, I think to travel with Harbaugh, you have to convert to Harbaughism, and I'm not quite willing to do that.
So I hope the invasion of France that he's doing works a little bit better than his invasion of the Big Ten.
Yeah.
But
one thing about Harbaugh, he is 3-0 now in the month of April. He just can't seem to win in November.
That's true. They took a nice picture of him and his team at the Arc de Triomphe the other day, and of course there haven't been too many triumphs in the Big Ten.
Or at the Arch of Triumph.
That's right. And I guess he's going to implement a bend but not break defense, and he's over there so that he can get lessons in retreat from the French. Otherwise,
yeah,
I'm not sure.
There are a lot of jokes in there about the French military, but I will not tell any of them on this program.
Hey, on a more serious note, you hear anything? I haven't heard anything in a long time about Baylor. You hear anything about Baylor? Yeah,
I was at an event about a week ago, and a couple of guys from Baylor were there, from Waco, I should say, and one from Baylor. And I think the feeling is that it wasn't as bad as the record last year for Matt Rule. I still don't know why he took the job, but he did. He has a lot of guarantees, but I'm really impressed with his coaching ability. So Baylor took a year off from football, but I think they'll be back.
All right. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much. Great to hear from you. Really good stuff. Let's continue. Aaron in Rome, Georgia. Hello, Aaron. Good afternoon.
Hey, Paul. How you doing?
We are doing great. Thank you.
Hey, it's a real honor to be on your show. Talk to you here. Real quick, said you wanted to talk about some happy stuff today. Love to get a shout out to all the SEC players who got drafted or went free agency route. A lot of families happy the other day.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt.
And speaking of happiness, I know Mark or John or somebody was saying they wanted some more Georgia folks to call. And Matt and Darriel have been worrying me a little bit here lately, especially with the polls last week. But we know how they are to a certain extent. But what I'd like to say to them is, it's just a game at the end of the day, man. And they have, you got to let go. You got to let go of just whatever you're holding on to, man. But that keeps things interesting, though. Anyway, man, so you got a post-spring SEC poll coming out today, or?
Yeah, we just released it. And who's your favorite team?
The Dogs, Georgia.
We have them at a very narrow second. I think that's a pretty good spot for them.
That's a given. We know. Well, real quick before I let you go, Paul, again, a great honor to talk to you, man. And I just had a hot take for you. You guys are making a comparison, not necessarily a comparison, but talking about Dabo taking over for Saban here down the road. And I was thinking, Saban dealing with his hurt and Tua issue. I think Dabo is possibly going to have the same issue here soon with his quarterback.
I totally agree.
Especially with Trevor Lawrence. The kid's for real. And I'm going to make a hot take here. I'm thinking Trevor is going to play in the Texas A&M game. I think Bryant's going to get pulled, and I'm just making it right now. Hey, thanks for
Aaron, thank you. By the way, I agree. I don't know if he'll play that quickly, but I don't have any doubt he'll be the starter before mid-season. Thank you for the call. Do appreciate it. How about Justin in Cleveland? Hello, Justin. Welcome to the show.
Paul, this is Justin in Cleveland, the official Paul Finebaum Show ombudsman. The last couple of weeks I've been doing some ground field research with the callers. I'd like to share that feedback with you now. First of all, now that you're offering medical advice, one of the callers would like to know, they say their friend, but take that for what it's worth, took a blue pill and he's had the effects for longer than 4 hours. What should he do?
I'm stuck. I'm not sure. Well, no, I'm not stuck.
No, I understand. The ESPN health insurance being what it is. The next question was, Jimbo Fisher's great-grandfather in 1902, what did he have for dinner on May 2nd? I mean, come on with Jimbo Fisher calls.
Yeah, Matt is really good. Matt has come up with – Matt should write a book, 197 different ways to ask the same question about Jimbo Fisher.
Hey, Paul, real quick before I go, how do you think Jimbo Fisher will do in his debut season at Texas A&M?
I didn't realize he was in Texas A&M, but he's going to do really well. Hey, thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Greg is up next in Alabama. How are you, Greg?
Hey, Paul. Thanks for taking my call. I heard the news about Beverly Davenport, and it seems like she was in her job less than the AD that she let go. And I'm wondering how this all bodes for Philip Fulmer down the road.
I don't think it's. I think Fulmer's in really good shape because she did not want Fulmer initially. I've heard she didn't really want to extend Fulmer to give him a 4-year deal. I think she just got caught up on 1,000 different areas. By the way, they're announcing. Do we have the announcement now, guys? Hold on a second, Greg. Apparently, you get fired as the chancellor. They name you a professor in the communication school. I'm not sure what that means about future journalists, but she'll be teaching in the communication school, according to an official statement. You have to really push the envelope to lose your job within a year as a college chancellor. I'm not sure I've ever heard of anything quite like this. Here's the official statement from Joe DiPietro. He's the president of the University of Tennessee system. Now, that's a system that's over all the different campuses. It's my responsibility as UT president to ensure the success of every campus, beginning with the leadership of every campus. A great deal is at stake in these hires, particularly given the importance of the flagship campus, both to fulfilling the UT system mission and to that mission's impact on the lives of all Tennesseans. Upon realizing that UT Knoxville needed a change from Dr. Davenport's leadership, I decided to take action to address the leadership need. Dr. Davenport and I have had several conversations during her tenure as chancellor to lay out expectations and discuss concerns. Unfortunately, that's probably the big word here, issues arose that have progressed, and while I am disappointed to make this change, it is necessary and in the best interest of the university. Greg, I don't think it's too difficult to read through that one, is it? No, it's not. And I guess he's also following that Hippocratic oath of doing no harm. You've got Darriel's calling up later to roast Alabama fans. You remember that David Sedaris book, Running with Scissors? Yes, I do. Yeah, well, he's co-authored a new book. It's a sequel to that with Darriel called Talking with Marbles. And it'll be out this week. So have a great weekend, Paul. We're down in Gulf Shores, and I hope you have a great week. Thank you very much, Greg. Good to hear from you. We've had a good start. Well, I don't know if it's been a good start, but it's a start. We're going to have a little fun now, something that is not forbidden on this program. Michael Collins, if you've never seen or heard Michael, check him out. He will be with us in just a couple of moments.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a flail.
Welcome back. I mean, we have had a serious show already, and we decided we needed a break. We started. I must admit, I told you this once. I'm watching, or maybe I'm on SportsCenter with Matt. I can't remember where I first saw you, and I said to Matt Berry, we're good friends. I said, "What's the deal with this guy?" And he said, "No, you'll like Michael." So, I talk about golf a little different. Yeah. So I finally met you last year at the PGA at Quail Hollow, and I've seen you a couple of times since then. And we invited you because the tournament's down the street, literally. Yeah. And before we get to golf, let's talk about you for a second, Michael. Were you a caddy before, a comedian, or comedian? No, I stand-up comedian for 20 years, and then caddying kind of happened through comedy completely by accident, and did that for 10 years. And about 5 or 6 years doing both. His last year as a comedian, he did the White House Correspondence Center, and then immediately became a caddy. Potentially could have been that way, but no, so, that's not even close. I'm really fascinated because I know some comedians, and they are just... They're out there. Well, it all depends on the style of comedian as well. Okay. Like, there are some comedians that are on stage really sociable, and then off stage can seem really antisocial. Oh, yeah. You know, and so for me, doing both comedy and caddying, the reason that I love doing both, because comedy, it was me. I was on stage. I was the guy with the microphone, I was the star. As a caddy, I'm the dude behind the curtain. Yeah, you're nobody. I'm nobody. It's great. And the player would have to stand in the camera, and they would be like, what happened on the par 3? Well, I hit a real good 7-iron. And I get to stand behind him going, yeah, you wanted to hit a 6-iron. I would have flown in the water if I wouldn't have said nothing. Like, it's cool. I know I was never going to be a good enough golfer to play on the PGA Tour, ever. I didn't learn how to play golf until I was like 23. So the only other way to be inside the ropes
is caddying, and there's no other sport, none, where you get to be a part of the team. Like, the coach can't go on any playing field whatsoever and just call a play unless you're like playing like t-ball or something like that, or the little kids playing football, and that's about it. So the fascination of the mental side of golf was just, I loved it. So I always tell people, comedy has my soul and golf has my heart.
So as a comedian, and I say this because we have a lot of people that think they're comedians that call on the show. What's the challenge? I mean, obviously you have to have material, but you also have to be relatable to the audience.
Yes.
So give us the secrets to being a great comedian.
I don't know if there's a secret. If there's one,
I'm asking a guy who's no longer a comedian.
I know,
but
yeah,
make believe.
What's the secret to being funny now that you don't have to be funny all the time?
Make believe you've had Chris Rock's career.
I think there's a familiarity that people have with you as a person when they see you on TV or on stage,
right.
And I think almost every comedian who's become extremely famous, people see that person and they say, I know someone exactly like you, that either looks like you or acts like you or talks like you. And I think if you have that connection with people.
Did you have a go-to joke that you? I mean,
no, because I didn't tell jokes. I just, whatever happened in my life is what I talked about. So, because I think that's also the most fun and relatable stuff.
So you walk out on stage, and I mean, do you know when you look out there?
Kind of.
Yeah.
I knew the subjects that I wanted to talk about. Now, the order that they would necessarily come out, I wouldn't know. And then if somebody started yelling stuff out, and if I had a heckler, then it was
you
like,
wanted that, didn't you?
Yeah, I was cool with that. But you know what I found out? That and improv, when I was first starting out doing stand-up, if you wanted to do 5 minutes on stage, you had to do an improv. So we had all these comedians starting out, did improvisation, and then you were allowed to go do your own 5-minute set. And I have learned that because of that, I became a better journalist as far as asking questions to athletes and then listening to their answer and then following up a question with it.
So so you go from a comedian
to a caddy.
Mm-hmm.
And then
why did that end? I guess I should ask.
Well, Sirius XM. I started doing USA Network stuff. They had a show called PGA Tour Sunday, and I ended up doing 5 seasons on that. And then Sirius XM.
You realize that was better than.
I never missed the cut doing media. I never missed the cut, and it's free food and a golf cart. This is what happens when you stop caddying and carrying a 35. When you don't carry a 35-pound golf bag 7 miles every day and you get a golf cart and free food, ta-da!
What was the biggest moment you had as a caddy?
Oh, man. There's a lot of them. Me and Kevin Stroman winning the Kodak Challenge together, because that was over half a season we were together. That was huge. But, I mean, one of my favorite moments was getting Omar Uresti through Q School the first time. Wow. He had never made it through Q School on the West Coast. And I was performing the week before in the Bahamas and almost broke my is
that as pressure packed as I read?
Yeah. So, and that was the thing. I have never felt pressure like that before, and I had to stay cool and calm for him. It's the only time I ever almost threw up on the golf course. On the last day, we had a putt that was 8 feet for par, and we were on the number. So if he misses the putt, we're out. And if he makes the putt, we stay in with 2 more holes to play.
You're sick to your stomach.
Well, yeah, because he's bending down reading the putt, and he looks at me and he goes, I don't see it. What's this going to do? And I go, it's going to break a little bit left. And I found a spot, and I go, roll the ball right over this point right here, and it'll break and go dead center. And he looks at me and he goes, okay. And when he stepped in to hit the putt, I was like, because I kept thinking to myself, like, this is.
You have to admit, it would have been pretty funny if you just.
No, it would not have been. Because there were still 2 more holes to play.
They got rakes for the sand, but I don't think
the funny thing was, he makes the putt, and when he turns to look at me, I got to play it cool. So he makes the putt, and I was like, yeah, good job, man. It's cool. Let's go do this, man. Come on, it's nothing. And he goes, yeah. And I could see he was getting his confidence from me. So I have to play it cool. And then finally he makes a birdie on the 17th hole. So now we're in by at least a shot. And he makes a par on 18. And, he lagged it up there to about this far. And he looks at me and he goes, what's the number? Oh. And I was like, man, you better hit that putt in the hole and let's get out of here. And I'm trying to smile as I'm tearing up. And he taps it in, he comes over, and he hugs me and says, thanks, man. And as soon as I get goosebumps telling it now, because when he said that to me, I lost it. I literally cried and sat in a golf cart because I knew the difference between at the time going to the PGA Tour and the Web.com Tour, that's millions of dollars. So every week you're playing for $6 million as opposed to playing for maybe $1 million, where the winner's check on the Web.com Tour was less than the winning caddy check on the PGA Tour.
People don't like to talk about money, but what kind of money does a caddy make?
If you're with one of the top 50 golfers in the world, you can make some money. I mean, everyone thinks you get 10% flat, but it doesn't really work that way. You get a weekly paycheck,
right?
Because caddies have to pay all their own expenses: airfare, hotel, car rental, food, all of that kind of stuff. Food gets expensive. I'm just saying. But after all of that, then you negotiate the percentage: 10% for a win, 7 to 8% for a top 10, 5 to 6% for everything else. But some guys will say, "I'll take less weekly."
I mean, if you're Tiger, you're not paying a guy 10%, are you?
For a win,
back in the day.
For a win, yeah.
Oh, for a win,
sure, for a win.
Okay,
for 10% for a win, 7% for a top 10, and 5% for everything else. You know, and there are guys like Tiger Woods, and, you know, you take a guy who maybe you don't think wins a lot, but go back and look at Jim Furyk. We caddies called him an ATM machine.
Yeah.
Because every week you cash in the check, you can go just boop, 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 money's popping out. Just and there are other guys called lottery tickets, where you put the thing in, boop, 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 bang. No, I didn't win this. It's a scratch off. Okay.
You're not flying to the next site.
Yeah, that's when you know what? That's when you got a lottery ticket, you share a room with like 3 other caddies for the week, which is not fun.
Yeah, I mean, free breakfast hotels are big places for
big time. And if your guy makes the cut, what happens is normally if it's 3 guys in a room, whoever's guy plays the worst is the one that sleeps on the floor. So make sure that your dude or sleeps in the cot, you know. So yeah.
We'll come back and talk a little golf. Michael is working. He's not working as a caddy. He's covering the Wells Fargo at Quail Hollow for ESPN. You've seen him all day. You'll see him all weekend, and you'll see him when we come back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome back. A few more minutes with Michael Collins, the golf caddy. We were talking about some of the vagaries of the tour. You were talking about being with Tiger today. Mm-hmm. You and Tiger seem like you're pretty tight.
We enjoy each other's company on the golf course. We joke around a lot, and it's that's how I knew he was truly back. When I saw him this year at the Hero at his tournament, a lot of the other times when he would come back and say he was fine and he wasn't healthy, he was not fun to be with on the golf course because he wasn't himself. He was faking it. And I would tell him that, which of course he don't like stuff like that, but whatever. Like if I'm your friend, like right now we're on, if I had a hanging Chad, you're going to be like, hey man, before we come back on, clean. If you weren't my friend, you'd be like, good luck with that. That's good.
I probably wouldn't tell you.
See? Let's just call
See, I mean, Michael, when it comes to this show, friendship is always number 2 behind the audience.
The audience would love a hanging Chad off the caddy.
I'm not bailing you. I want that camera there is my best friend. You're my second best friend.
Well, no, I mean, me and Tiger, when I saw him at the Hero, the first thing we did was just start telling each other jokes and goofing off on the golf, like when we're out walking around. And the way he was walking, the way he was joking around on the golf course, I told everybody, this dude is the dude that I remember. And that's who's out on the golf course now. I mean, he's never going to be, for people who are like, is Tiger going to be the old Tiger from 2000? Be like, stop. Just stop it. That dude's dead. Like, that dude's never coming back. But this Tiger Woods that's here now is good enough to win golf tournaments. I don't know that he can win a major, but I truly believe he's going to win golf tournaments.
So we followed your career from comedian to caddy. So how do you end up? You do some stuff for Sirius XM. Yeah. How do you end up being the main golf guy for ESPN, which in the past has always had Twitter, really serious golf guys?
Well, then that was the difference. So one of the heads of ESPN heard me doing interviews on Sirius XM.
He was the guy.
Yeah, he was the guy. That because. He even said, like, the players don't talk to me the same way they talk to other reporters. because I'm a fan. I'm a fan of sports first. I love sports, and I love golf, and it drives me nuts when I'm like watching golf or into it, and all I hear is people going, 7-iron here from about 87. Or when they interview a player, they'll go, what happened on the 13th hole when you hit the 6? I'm like, you know what? I don't care. I don't care like how you hit a 6-iron like that. I like the guys that play this game and the women that play this game, and I want people to know them the way I know them. Right. So I'm going to talk to them the same way I'm going to talk to you, whether there's a camera there or no camera there. I don't care. Like, are you someone who's cool to hang out with? People should know that then if you are. And so that's kind of how I would always do interviews with players. And so someone heard it, and then they actually hit me on Twitter. And I thought it was for an ESPN radio interview.
They hired you on Twitter?
Yeah, one of the golf editors hit me on Twitter. Yeah. So, and I thought it was a joke at first. When I first went to Bristol and I went into the main guy's office, I walk in and he closes the door and is like, I'm really excited you're here. And I'm looking in the corners of the office. And he goes, what's the matter? And I go, I'm looking for cameras because if Ashton Kutcher jumps out and tells me I punked, I'm going to be pissed off right now. And he laughed and was like, nah, man, it's not a joke. This is for real. And I was like, seriously, ESPN? In my life, man, I would have never dreamed of this.
I take it you don't, in your deal with ESPN, have a clothing allowance?
What? Are you hating on my William Murray right now? Are you hating on my William Murray right now? I take it with your deal with ESPN, you don't get a hair deal. So how about that? You know what I mean? I got some clippers with me, man. I tighten you up right now. Make you look cool. Jim Furyk called. He said he'll give you some hats.
Nah, it gives me something to do with my hands during the show.
You'll be like Paul Finebaum, victim of a hairjacking.
Man, this every time I see you, I hate when it ends.
I know, man. We have so much fun together, man.
It is great. Michael Collins, the golf caddy. He'll be coming to a television near you. Michael, thank you so much.
Anytime, my friend. Anytime.
Great stuff.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Put a little cherry on the top.
It was BYOG. Bring your own guts.
This is the best
Do you hear me?
of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
And welcome back. It has been a really fun show. Michael Collins in studio the first hour. We've been talking about a lot of lists with Mark Schlabach coming out with his way too early, although it's really not that early any longer. Top 25. We here on the program released a post-spring power rating. Your phone calls continue at 855-242-7285. Let's move along, get some calls here, and Wade is next up. Wade, go right ahead.
Yeah, Paul, I just wanted to say about Michael Collins there. I'm not a golf fan. I don't watch golf. I have tried playing it, and I suck at it pretty much. But watching him there, that would make me want to turn on the golf on ESPN to watch golf just to hear him. That is
He's
the
great.
funniest man I've heard lately.
I agree with you, and I mentioned that I'd been around him a couple of times, and I mean, he has an infectious personality that I clearly and completely understand what ESPN was thinking when they brought him on board.
Yeah, that was a great move by ESPN, I've got to say.
Well, thank you very much. Nice of you to call. We heard earlier today from one of our callers, Darriel, that he was going to be calling the show, and he was going to be taking no prisoners. Rarely do callers preempt their own call by going on Twitter and making that proclamation. He warned Alabama fans, I'll be calling the Finebaum Show, and you better bring your popcorn. Got your popcorn, got your popcorn, got your popcorn. Darriel is up next. What do you say, Darriel?
Well, first, I have a question about golf, since we were talking about that. Why is it unlike, I guess, outside of bowling, if you even consider bowling a sport, why do you think it is the rules in golf etiquette is you have to be quiet and you can't move, you got to be still when players address their ball?
Because the history of golf goes back, obviously, to St. Andrews, and it was a gentleman's game to start out, and that's the way it continues to be played.
I understand. It's just in football, you got to make a clutch field goal, or baseball, you got to hit a 95-mile-an-hour baseball before screaming. It just doesn't seem. I don't know. But I always wonder why you got to be so quiet when somebody's putting or whatever. I mean, I understand it's an etiquette rule, but still, it seems like it would be more fun if you just act like however you wanted to act. Yeah, I do have an issue with Alabama people, and this is why, Paul. I'm going to ask you this: why are they the way they are? I mean, I forgot about the national championship game, but you cannot have a conversation with an Alabama fan on social media without them always wanting to point out 2-26, 2-26. What time is it? 2-26, Georgia. What time? That's all you hear over and over and over again. And now they're boasting about having the number one recruiting class in 2019, and we ain't even in 2019 yet. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. Why are they the fan base? All they want to do is they want everybody to do bad, and they want to be the only ones that do good. And that's just the way they are. And I don't understand that. I don't understand why they're that way. Do you have an answer?
Well, Darriel, let me ask you a question. The Alabama-Georgia game is over the next day. What are you talking about on this program?
Well, I'm talking about Georgia, but I ain't boasting
No,
about it.
you're not talking about Georgia. You're talking about how your team got jobbed in the game.
I agree Alabama should have won the game, okay? But you know what? That is not a spectacular play like they try to make it out to be. It's not as spectacular as that 36-yard shank field goal they missed. There's nothing spectacular about a guy being wide open on busted coverage. A spectacular play would be like when Tennessee beat Georgia and the guy went up there and caught the Hail Mary with all these defenders standing around. That's a spectacular play. Throwing the ball to a wide-open receiver is not spectacular. You won the game for them, but it ain't all that. They're trying to make it all into something. And now I got another question for them. They're no better, Paul, than anybody else. I think the facts have proven that, okay? If you take away Nick Saban and you take away Bear Bryant, their tradition really ain't that much better than anybody else's, which proves to me that they require a great head coach to have success, just like any other school. But to hear them, you just go to Alabama, you're just going to be great. That's not the case.
Well, Darriel, first of all, you clearly don't understand Alabama football history to make the statement you just made.
Well, okay, how many national championships have they won, Paul?
Well,
really? How many have they really won?
Well, I mean, they've won 17, but you're talking about Gene Stallings won a national championship.
Okay, they won 17. How many did they win under Bear and Saban?
Saban won 6, and Saban's won 5, and Bear won 6.
Okay, that's 11. You pull those 11 away, that leaves, 6? About what everybody,
Yeah, but the thing you fail to remember, though, is that Alabama won championships under Wallace Wade, under Frank Thomas, under Bear Bryant, under Gene Stallings, and Nick Saban. I mean, how many other schools? But how many other schools, Darriel, can make the claim that they've won national championships under 5 different coaches? How about Georgia? How many different coaches? Darriel, how many different coaches have won national championships at Georgia?
Georgia, LSU, Arkansas, Florida, and Georgia have more national championships than the University of Alabama. That's the fact. They always want to.
Well, first of all, Darriel, slow down a second. You asked me a question. I mean, Wallace Wade, I believe, won 3 national championships.
But you're giving credit to national championships that were won when they got blown out.
I'm not. I mean, these are legitimate national championships in 25, 26, and 30. You remember those, don't you?
Okay, out of the 6, then that would be left after Bear Bryant and Saban, how many of those 6 are legit, in your opinion?
Well, the only one I don't think is legit under Bear Bryant is the one he won in '73 when he lost to Notre Dame in the bowl game. I think that's illegitimate.
Did they finish 3rd in the conference one year and they claimed a national title?
Well, yeah, that's true, but that was before my time, so I can't answer to that.
And I would also wonder why every time Auburn seems to have a good football team and there's something on the line, they can't beat them. They are 0-3 in their last 3. Cam Newton, the kick 6, and then this year. Why is that the case? If they're so much better than everybody else. They're they're claiming to be number 1 right now in recruiting in 2019.
Hey, Darriel, let me, you talked so much I can't, did you say, you said Alabama has all these national championships. Who did you say had more national championships than Alabama?
LSU, Arkansas 2, Florida 3, Georgia 4, then Alabama's 5. I looked it up.
Are you kidding me?
No, I am not kidding you. National titles.
LSU has won, I believe, 3 national championships.
Okay, well, when we're talking about all sports, Paul, when I was just talking about football here.
I didn't. I'm sorry, Darriel. I didn't realize we were talking about women's cross country and equestrian here. Okay, you tried to slip that one in on me.
Oh, we're not going to count them. No, it didn't count. That's not a national. Yeah, it is a national title. It's a national title that school won, regardless of what sport it was in. I mean, I think football is the only sport that NCAA doesn't really give a declare.
Bring your own guts.
This is the best
Do you hear me?
of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Second half of the show is live. We had a great first half. We had Michael Collins on the ESPN Golf Caddy. He was actually in studio. Could not have been funnier. We really appreciate him dropping by. We went over Mark Schlabach's top 25. We revealed our post-spring power rankings. Heather Dinnich later on. Your phone calls now at 855-242-7285. Let's continue. John in Tennessee, you're on the air.
Hey, Paul, how you doing today?
Okay, John, thank you.
I want to talk a little bit about Chancellor Davenport. First of all, I get a lot of flack for saying this, but when she speaks, I hear echoes of Pat Summitt in that woman's voice. Her tenacity, her passion for the university and stuff like that. Now, my question to you is, do the ends justify the means? We've had a lot of crazy stuff going on with the Curry stuff. Yeah, she hired him, but she fired him and hired Fulmer. So what's next for the University of Tennessee? It's the last thing we need.
John, the only thing I will say about this, and I don't, all I've read is the letter from the president of the system to her, terminating her and putting her on administrative leave. And I will tell you, it is a scathing, excoriating document. I have not seen anything quite like that. I don't know what happened. I don't think her sports athletic decisions had very much of anything to do with those, even though she clearly made a terrible mistake, being arrogant and not listening to common advice about Philip Fulmer a year ago and having to unload Curry. But, I mean, this has much more to do with her demeanor, her style, her lack of direction, her lack of follow-up with the president and many others than I think it had to do with that specific situation.
Yes, sir. I absolutely agree, and I think that her athletic decisions were all just. I feel like Curry had a pretty decent reputation prior to.
Yeah, he did. Listen, that was a judgment call. That was her call. But yeah, she may have created some enemies there. But you can't write the letter that the president wrote to her based on one or two things. I mean, that is an avalanche of evidence that he must have had against her.
Yes, sir, and I just have to say, I think this is a terrible move on behalf of the university. I love Chancellor Davenport. I think she's great. Like I said, I hear echoes of Pat Summitt in her voice.
Okay, well, listen, I met her a few times. We had her, for those who don't remember Beverly Davenport, you've seen her introducing John Curry a year ago. You saw her firing John Curry a couple of months ago. You saw her hiring Phillip, and you saw her at Pruitt's press conference. We also, back in September, we did the show from the Hill in Knoxville. She came by. She was very cordial. She brought a number of gifts for us, including two plaques she gave me commemorating my work at the school paper, my whatever, I can't remember what it is. It's in my house. She was quite flamboyant. She was personable. A lot of students really liked her, as you just heard from that individual. But again, I haven't been in Knoxville in a couple of months. I had no idea what was brewing, but it doesn't matter now. The president, with consultation, I'm sure, from the board, have made that decision. Thank you very much. She will not be replaced by our next caller, I-Man.
Hey, good afternoon, Paul.
Afternoon.
I guess I'm going to have to go Joe from Red Bay and apologize for yesterday. I had no idea that was one of the 7 words you could not say. But I guess it is.
I can't remember what you said.
So it's 8 words.
Oh, okay.
Paul, what would really be helpful for y'all is to, on your screen, instead of putting Jim's email, Twitter address, or whatever, put up the words we can't say so we don't say them.
Okay.
I mean, y'all can do it. We can't. Okay,
yeah, I mean, I think a couple of words you can't say. You cannot. Here's one thing you can't do. You can't criticize Bama.
Who?
I mean, you can't.
Bammer. You're talking about the Bammers.
You cannot say that Bama didn't win 17 national championships, or you will get beaten down.
No, they won 36.
If you will get beaten down by the host of this show.
All you got to do is go to Wikipedia, and you see they've won everything since, 1774?
Well, they did win that. They did win the year of the War of 1812, but because of the Battle of New Orleans, it was not covered very closely.
That's exactly right, because it didn't have TV.
Yeah.
And there's some cave drawings over in Italy somewhere where Alabama beat some mastodons and some T-Rexes and that kind of thing.
I think they beat. Did Alabama the winner or loser of the Peloponnesian War? I can't remember.
It doesn't matter. They were there. They can claim it anyway, and we can't dispute it. And you know what, ladies and gentlemen, quit worrying about what Bammers won, because they got to win something, whether it's real or fictional. They are the Jim from Tuscaloosa's, and that takes me back to the professional you had on the day before yesterday, before I got caught up in that word yesterday. You know, that guy was dead on. Jim got smacked down, and the Eagles wrote a song about it. The train left here this morning. And I don't know where it's going. Randy Meisner did it. Great song.
Oh,
but
Randy
Jim
Meisner, a very unsung hero of the Eagles.
Absolutely. And from Poco as well.
Forgot that. What a voice.
Yeah, he was with the original lineup with Poco. And I tell you, the Eagles lived real good off of Poco and the Joe Walsh Band. And now, what's the country singer guy?
Vince Gill.
Anyway, moving on. Yeah,
Vince Gill. Vince Gill has now replaced Glenn Fry in the Eagles.
Fry's son replaced Glenn.
Well, I would say Vince is doing some of the more heavy lifting from Glenn Fry's son.
He is. Absolutely he is. And, you know, Vince was in the Pure Prairie League for us.
He did Amy. You better believe it.
Well, he didn't do Amy. Craig Fuller did. But
well, he was on the. He sang on the Amy. Hey, listen, man. I know a little bit about rock music. If you're going to try to force me into telling you who were the background singers on Amy on Pure Prairie League, I'm going to throw in the towel right now. I cannot do that.
Well, that's George Powell.
I am not qualified because I was not sitting around smoking dope like you were back then. I was trying to study.
Well, I mean, how do you? Well, you had to do something to read albums. I mean, all you could do is sit and watch it spin. I mean, you had to do something. Hell, I qualified for the NBA, and I couldn't even dribble a basketball. But that was back then. And
next thing you're going to tell me, I'm going to mention Bob Dylan. You're going to tell me Bob Dylan really didn't sing all those songs. Someone else did. It was actually Peter, Paul, and Mary.
But he was a heck of an influence on John Lennon and Paul McCartney. Let's say that.
He sure was.
Absolutely, he was. But you know that professional.
So was James Brown.
And he directed Jim through the conversation, and all Jim could do was attack him. That's all Jim.
Now answer me this: was Jim or was Jim not the fifth Beatle?
No, he was never a Beatle.
Okay.
He was never a Rolling Stone, and he was never a great caller on your show. He was a worrisome guy, and you kind of patted him.
I think he was a Rolling Stone. I just don't think he was in the Rolling Stones.
No, he wasn't. Because I could have been in the Rolling Stones, but I turned it down. I had other things to do. No, I'm lying. See, I can admit it. I lied to you on national radio, but I can admit it because it's no shame to me. It's
you know what I did? I turned down the lead in Seinfeld because I didn't. It just seemed like the wrong name for me.
Time. Well, I mean, you're doing this James Taylor thing on the weekends as it is, and I mean, you're real good at it. So, I mean, why else? I mean, you'd have been a hell of a quarterback if it hadn't been for that knee injury.
Yeah.
But see, you admitted the
just
knee
yesterday
injury.
morning.
We don't know what injury took Jim out other than he got his feelings hurt, and they must have really got hurt bad. Really bad because Mama couldn't fix him. I mean, she stroked his head and she pat him on the back. She made him banana pudding, like Bill Cosby used to make, and it did not help.
Right, by the way, that's another name. That's another word you can't use in the show anymore.
What, Bill Cosby?
Bill
banana
Cosby.
Pudding?
No, that is verboten.
Mama?
No, Bill Cosby.
Bill Cosby. He's not had a good week, but that's kind of like Jim. I mean, he's been busted. He's been busted publicly. But if Jim's been busted, he's been busted since his program before you even left Tennessee with a bad knee, because he's been disgruntled since he was a teenage boy. And you got younger kids on this program now that never complain. They've got their life in front of them, and Jim's life ended before these kids ever. I mean, it's amazing to me. But, you know, Paul, somebody said you give Jim his 15 minutes. You are the quarter-hour man. You own that 15 minutes. You decide who gets it. You are the wizard of the SEC Network. You are the wizard of Oz. You are the wizard of radio. You decide who sees that 15 minutes. And, you know, like that new caller earlier, see, those guys don't threaten me.
We report,
you decide. They actually take pressure off of me because they're good callers where Jim is threatened. Jim is not number 1. He's not number 10. He's not number 15.
Can we begin to wind this down here?
Why, you're not through? I got my 15 minutes.
I mean,
you're only going to give me 7.5.
The lights are blinking on me, and they're telling you the stage.
I'm going to call you every day for the rest of your natural life. You hear what I'm telling you? War damn eagle, we're only getting faster.
Oh, my. That was an exhausting phone call. I engaged in the first half. I sat out the second. Let's talk to Mike in Kentucky. You are on the air. Hello, Mike.
Hey, Paul. Paul, I'm a first-time caller, long-time watcher of your show. I love your show.
Thank you so much.
Okay, well, I'm a Kentucky football season holder and have been since a guy by the name of Hal Mummy was there.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, and I became a season ticket holder because when Tubby Smith was the coach, and he was a great man, but he quit recruiting real good basketball players to Kentucky. But you know what? Despite all the Georgia and Bama fans bantering, and, you know, Bama's got the greatest program in the country, hands down, no argument. Georgia's got a long way to go. They haven't proved anything yet. But, you know, as a Kentucky football fan, I love all SEC football. Every year I look forward to rooting for every SEC team during the bowl games, and that's including Tennessee. You know, years ago, Tennessee was Kentucky's number 1 rival. That changed when the state legislature made us play Louisville. So Louisville's our number 1 fan, and all Kentucky fans, we call them Loserville. But anyway, you know, I can't wait till football season. I love your show, like to watch it. And by the way, we play a pretty good brand of basketball up there in Lexington, too. Paul, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Great to hear from you. I agree with you on that. Big Kentucky basketball fan. We are up against a break. Still more to come. I hope you'll stick around.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome back here on a Wednesday afternoon. Been a while since we talked to Zach up in Knoxville. What do you say, Zach?
Hey, what's up, Boss Paul?
We're doing great.
I've not had a chance to read the article on Dr. Davenport. Did they give any specifics on why they're going to let her go?
Yeah, the letter from President DiPietro to her pretty much lays it out, and I'm doing it from memory now because I looked at it very quickly, but a lot of it's communication skills, a lot of it's a refusal to follow direction, an inability to communicate. I mean, there are some major personality issues that he communicated to her that were just simply untenable.
Well, Paul, if you'll remember, at first I didn't have a problem with us hiring her, but the more I saw her, the more I heard her talk. She just seemed a little ditzy. She seemed to be more of a cheerleader than somebody that could be a chancellor. And the fact that she had the chance to hire the right man for AD and Philip Fulmer, and I personally believe she didn't want to hire him because of his popularity. She was afraid he was going to be more her boss than she his. And, Paul, I'll say this, too, and let me get your opinion on it. I say that Philip Fulmer played a major role in seeing that Bev was showed the door. What do you think?
I don't know the answer to that. I do think that he would have been very popular with a number of key players up there, but that's really beyond my knowledge.
Well, I know he and DiPietro, they're very tight, and I know, well, you know as well I do, he was hurt when he was not considered when she came out and said that you had to be a sitting AD to get the job. I mean,
I don't know. Do you know? I mean, I've been around her twice, Zach, and I mean, she was a different type of personality than I have ever encountered as a university chancellor.
I totally agree with you. I didn't think it meshed well. I didn't think it was a good look. And, we hit the trifecta. We got rid of Butch. We got rid of John Curry, which, by the way, in my opinion, was a fireable offense alone that she goes out there and hires that guy. And that's been the problem, Paul, at Tennessee. People want to know what's wrong with Tennessee. It's men are poor choices in hiring people in high positions.
No doubt.
And I'm hoping now with Philip being athletic director, we can start hiring some people that are serious about putting Tennessee football back on track. So I hate to hear of anybody losing their job, but the fact of the matter is it was a bad fit. Nothing she did was worked out well. I hope she finds a good job, but bye-bye, Bev, and bye-bye, Paul, and go Vols.
Got it. We go from Knoxville to Birmingham. Legend is next.
What's going on, Coach?
How are you, Legend? Brother? What's going on, my man?
Brother, just enjoying the show, brother. Great show so far. A lot of hating going on. Hate.
Did you hear Darriel?
I like Darriel as a caller. I even put on Twitter I thought he was a great caller. But, the problem, what makes some folks a great caller sometimes is they're just delusional. And, the dude's delusional, Paul. It really is. That touchdown, it was a great pass because he looked the safety off. And, it was one of the greatest passes I've seen in my lifetime. I thought it was spectacular.
Darriel said it was a lucky play.
Brilliant. But, they just got to get over the fact that, we are who we are. I understand, Paul, because I'm a lifelong Colts fan. And I have that same hatred for the New England Patriots. So I understand how the Georgia Bulldogs feel. I understand the fact that I have a great team, but Tom Brady beats my ass every year. You have to accept reality when it comes to sports, and a lot of these folks are just not accepting reality and the dynasty that exists in Alabama and the fact that it ain't going away no time soon, so they might as well just accept it. It's a mentality, and we have it, and they don't. You have to have a nasty, get in the dirt, beat the opponent's butt mentality when it counts, and that's the difference between Alabama and Notre Dame and Georgia. But I would like to tell QB like this right here in Golden Domer, as a Colt fan, I really appreciate that 330-pound beast Quentin Nelson that we got. I would call that a stroke of luck. I love it. Hey, Paul, here's the thing. You can hate a college team, but when you got a favorite pro team and they draft a player on a team that you hate in college, you automatically forgive that player and accept him into the family. I hate Tennessee, but the moment Peyton Manning was drafted, all them times he beat Alabama, it was forgiven right there, Paul. Welcome to the family. Hey, Paul, I was looking at your power rating. Mississippi State and South Carolina, that's 4 and 5. Is that because of the quarterbacks?
Well, sure. I think they're both really good, especially Mississippi State, Legend.
Yeah, I would agree with you, but don't you think that's kind of an indictment on Florida and LSU? If I'm Alabama and the power ratings are out, and Mississippi State and South Carolina is ahead of me, that's kind of an indictment that my program might be headed in the wrong
Legend,
direction.
let me ask you a question. Did you see the Mississippi State LSU game last year?
I did. I like Mississippi State.
Yeah, they put one on them.
Some of their players. There's a coaching change going on down there too. So do you think that they keep on running the way they were?
Well,
running?
What I really like about LSU is the spin that's coming out of there about what a bad guy, what a bad man Matt Canada was. He was hired because the administration wanted some creativity on that offense, and Orgeron did not let that happen, and now he's back to yesterday, and everyone thinks it's great, but I'm failing to understand that, Legend. Explain it to me.
Well, I don't understand it either, Paul. But here's the thing about it, and I know our friend Tim Brando is a big LSU fan, and I had tweeted the other day that Coach O would be 0 for never versus Alabama his years at LSU. And here's the thing. When you are a marquee program like LSU has been over the last 10, 15 years, you do not settle for a Coach O, Paul. These are totally wasted years. LSU can get rid of him this year, or they can wait 3 more years before they get rid of him. But when you are slipping to 7th in the power ratings and you are LSU, you need to realize that I don't care if he sounds like a good old boy, he sounds like Fairbright or whatever. It's time to get him out of there, Paul, in my opinion. I mean, Mississippi State ahead of LSU? What in the world is going on, Paul Finebaum? You telling me South Carolina is the main competition for Georgia?
Yeah, I mean, if you watch the SEC last year in the East, Legend, yes, that would be my answer.
But that's an indictment against Florida. But thank God they finally went and got Dan Mullen. Maybe that'll help them, Paul. I'm kind of proud of Georgia, and I'll tell you why. As an Alabama fan, we want some folks to step up and be competition. We want some folks to get real. We've been carrying this conference forever. It's time for some of these powerhouses to come alive. I was glad to see Tennessee got a 5-star player yesterday. Pruitt already paying off. So, I mean, that's good for Tennessee because that's what it's going to take right there. But, Paul, if I get off, I just want to tell man, I want to evaluate his call. That was real garbage. Stay thirsty, my friend.
Thank you very much. Always great to hear from you, Legend. We're up against a break now, and when we come back, we'll talk to some more guests here. Heather Dinnich will join us. More of your phone calls at 855-242-7285.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a flip.
Welcome back to our program, and Heather Dinnich joining us. And I don't know. I mean, obviously, I am way down on the lowly list of ESPN talent. I got a road trip the other day to Athens, Georgia. I think I have another one coming up to another Starkville. I can't remember where. Heather's in Arizona. She was in Dallas the other day. She'll probably be in Honolulu tomorrow. Heather, good afternoon. How are you?
Paul, I'm trying to meet the Hawaii coach to work that out.
Yeah, you've got the gig, no doubt about it. Let's talk before we get too deep into the bowl situation. We want to throw a headline up here, and I'll read it to the audience, and then we'll get back to the bowls at the end of the conversation. But there's a story out: football coaches unanimously vote to support a new transfer rule concept. This has been much discussed, a lot of reaction to this. Tell us what it's all about.
Well, Todd Berry, the executive director of the AFCA, yesterday told us that they have an idea, and the idea is to, if a player leaves a school and goes to another one and sits out that year like they usually do under the current NCAA transfer rule, if they go on to graduate at that next school, they can get that year of eligibility back, which essentially, Paul, opens the door for a kid to play football for 5 years, which is interesting. And, you know, some coaches really didn't flinch at the idea of that. They said, well, look, you know, the proposal out there for red shirts to play 4 games is essentially similar to that. So they weren't too surprised about that. But the other piece of the puzzle that the coaches really like is right now, if a player leaves that school with a GPA that's under 2.6, that school gets dinged in the APR point. And under this new idea that the AFCA has, that GPA would transfer to the next school, and then the hope would be to incentivize that student to get his GPA up, and for the school that he's going to say, we're going to help you graduate and get that up because now that APR is ours.
Very, very interesting. A lot of reaction coming in on that, Heather. Let me share with you share with the audience some comments from Urban Meyer, the Ohio State coach. Certainly had a lot to say about this. He said, I think it's a very touchy subject. I think all of the coaches are worried about the wild, wild west mentality. There's still more dialogue to be had. I am a fan of the graduate transfer. I bet he is. Once they achieve the ultimate goal of getting your degree, they've earned that right. This is kind of tied to that, which kind of makes sense. By the way, it's kind of hard to use kind in the same sentence twice. Good going, Urban. I hope everybody just presses pause and let's really think this thing through, what's best for the player and the sport in general. This could be a major blow-up if it's not well thought out. That is Urban Meyer. Any reaction to that, Heather?
Well, I talked to him about that, and I think, honestly, he was probably more cautious than any of the other coaches or athletic directors that I talked to. Everybody that I've talked to was so frustrated with the transfer rule and the whole concept of it. And Sandy Barber, the athletic director at Penn State, told me yesterday, you know what, we need to all think outside of the box. So I'm not going to say that this isn't going to happen. And it's a long way from actually happening because the ASBA doesn't really have any control over whether or not. They just put the idea out there, and then there's a NCAA transfer working group that would have to submit the proposal, and just a lot of steps to get it through and get it passed that likely wouldn't even happen until I think about August of 2019 is the most realistic timetable for it. But Urban doesn't. He has concerns about the transfer rule, and his big thing was if these players can graduate, that should be our main goal, and that rule that we're talking about now, this idea, would certainly help players do that.
Heather Dinnich joining us. We just saw the release, as you have, of course, of the bowls and the college football playoff. It's earlier. Everything seems earlier this year. I realize that some of this is just a luck of the calendar. You've got to get that game in on a Monday night before the NFL and before a lot of other things start happening. What's been the reaction, or your reaction, I guess I should say, to this new schedule for the college football playoff?
Well, Bill Hancock, the executive director, talked just a little bit about that last week at the spring meetings in Dallas. But they're happy with the calendar and the way everything is, and the 6 rankings, and in terms of the space between the semis and also the national championship. And I think not this year, but the following year, there's, I want to say, like 16 days between those games. So they're happy with the way things are, and with after the fallout from the first couple of years or so with the New Year's Day and everything, they like the changes that have been made.
Yeah, they're still not selling New Year's Eve, are they?
No, not talking about that one.
Yeah, for those of you who have forgotten, the playoffs, what was it, the second year? Heather was on New Year's Eve, and Bill Hancock told us it would work. It didn't. And finally, we got off of that. Heather, I have to ask you, this is a spring tour right now. Spring meetings are everywhere. You have these college football playoff meetings, football coaches. What's next for you?
Actually, on Monday, I'm going to be in Washington, D.C., back on kind of a home game for me because the Night Commission is meeting there. So, we've just been doing a lot of talking here, Paul, not just about the transfer rule, but a lot about college basketball, to be perfectly honest with you, with, basketball coaches and things like that. So that's next on the plate for me.
When you said you were going to be in Washington, I thought you'd been hired to be the new counsel for President Trump. I was confused. Heather, always great to catch up. Thank you again for joining us, and don't let those that Arizona sunset disturb you tonight. Looks pretty good.
No complaints here, Paul. Thanks for having me on.
Great to have you back. Heather Dinnich joining us from Arizona. We are going to take a short break. More of your phone calls at 855-242-7285.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome back. Glad you are with us here on this Wednesday afternoon. Been a good show. A lot of things happening. Let's talk to Joe in Pennsylvania. What do you say, Joe?
Hey, Paul. It's Wacky Wednesday, I see. Hey, Paul, got a question for you. Actually, 2 questions. How about a pick for the Kentucky Derby on Saturday? And I guess my second question was, how do you think Bo Scarborough is going to fit in with the Cowboys, and what role do you think he'll play?
I think Bo will do well. By the way, I've looked at the sheet. I was struck. I admit, I used to cover thoroughbred racing. I have not done it in a while, so I would be the wrong person to ask. But I do love the name Mendelssohn. It is hard to beat that. Not only a great composer, but I've never seen a horse named after a composer. I think that's who it's named after, isn't it?
Yeah, that's correct.
Wow. Some symphonic music as we run for the roses. Do you play the horses, Joe?
I do.
Give me some advice then.
Well, Justified is probably right now the front runner, I believe.
Big favorite, I think. Yeah.
Yes, and Good Magic is another horse that I've liked and I followed as a 2-year-old.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about Justify.
Yeah.
Now, which one is the Bob Baffert horse? I'm trying to remember.
Justify.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
He's the best.
Yeah, absolutely. And the more I see that horse, and it's a beautiful horse as well, and it just kind of reminds you of Secretariat. That's hard to believe was 45 years ago.
That is hard to believe.
Yeah. 1973, I know.
Wow.
We're dating ourselves, Paul.
I remember that. I remember Secretariat, and then the one I also remember was it Affirmed?
Yes, Affirmed in Alydar.
In Alydar, yeah, they battled 3 straight
head.
Yeah, that was those are the ones that I remember the most, I guess, in my short life.
Seattle Slew was another one.
Seattle Slew, yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Why am I thinking of Spectacular Bid? That's a horse that failed to win the Derby, the Triple Crown, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, Paul. That's another great horse.
Yeah, no, I as I said, I used to really love the Triple Crown. I for some reason have not paid much attention to it in recent years, but I will be watching.
I wasn't sure if you followed it or not, Paul. I just wanted your advice, and of course, I've been a big follower of Bo Scarborough and his career. I know he's kind of had an up-and-down career, but the Cowboys got a great pick with him. I'm really happy for that.
Now, Joe, my first job, I actually covered racing quite a bit, and later on I did as well, but not quite to the extent. So I've had a few early mornings at the track, and even I did. It was for the final race of the year. I can't remember what it was called at Churchill. It was in November. It was a big race, but I knew someone who let me come the day before at sunrise at the stables, and that was really just an incredible memory. I would love to do that again sometime. But when you wake up with the horses, it is something to see.
Wow. Yeah. Well, thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much.
That.
Let me, I was stumbling between Mendelssohn and Justify. Let me ask a guy who probably knows more about thoroughbred racing than anyone in the history of this show. What about it, Jack?
There you go, baby. I woke up with a few horses, I guess you could call them that.
Do you play the Derby?
No, they had over at Birmingham. I played a little bit, ma'am. I just couldn't get into that. I just didn't, But,
Larry, I don't know. I can see you in a white suit and a red bow tie, sipping a mint julep. But by the way, this year it's Cinco de Mayo, so.
Whoa! Yeah.
Can you imagine Larry with all the muckety mucks at the Derby Saturday afternoon? Larry, I'm telling you, there is serious money in those boxes at Churchill Downs.
You got that right. I'll tell you, I would probably rub Dan top of his head for luck, because people that are going by usually bring you luck.
I think you would. I think you'd be the hit.
Oh yeah. I mean, it'd be. Listen, when I dress up and deck out, Jack, I mean, them women flock around me.
Larry, what's the time? I mean, aside from serious and unfortunate events, when's the last time you really got decked out?
When I really got decked out?
Yeah.
Let's see, it was about 10 years ago. I went to some fancy dinner with a bunch of people. Oh, I remember now. I went with this girl, and it was these high rollers, man, over in Birmingham, up in the south side, where everybody's. Oh, yeah. And I just embarrassed her.
Larry, what were you wearing, by the way?
I was wearing blue jeans, but I wore.
Larry, was this like a black tie event?
Yeah, but I didn't have no damn
Well, I'll tell you what, Larry. I've had an unbelievable. Last week, I had 2 black tie events in 5 days. Since my senior year in high school, I have not been subjected to anything like that.
It's disgusting.
Yeah.
And she said, "Do you have to talk so loud?" And,
so was she one of these society women, Larry?
For a beer. She said, "Just raise your hand for a beer. Don't holler, hey, can I get another Bud Light?" And so it didn't pan out.
Now you don't, Larry. You don't drink Bud Light at an event like this.
I do.
No, I mean you like just make up. You do some research and you come up with some fancy French wine and learn how to pronounce it. And when the guy in the white jacket comes in, you go all French.
Listen, I'm going. My neighbor wants me to go this dancing thing with her Friday night where they dance, all guys and gals, and that's it's dressy up thing.
So Larry, Larry, I just thought of something. There's another event I'd rather see you at than the Derby. It's next Monday night. It's at the Met in New York. It's the Met Gala. It's the biggest event of the year in fashion and art. Have you been to the Metropolitan Museum, Metropolitan Art Museum?
I don't even know what it is. No, I'd go.
No, I mean I want to see you at this event. I mean this is like the creme de la creme of New York society. I'm going next Monday night. I'll take you with me. How about that?
Man, you better not be lying to me now. I mean, I've had some good things happen today, Mark's history, and then Big Ten John's on suspension. He has to think about it. Now you promised me this. I'm writing it down right here. All right. There.
I've got you a suite at the Plaza Hotel. It's about 2 blocks away. Well, actually about 20 blocks away, but who's counting? The limousine will pick you up at 5:45, and we're going to the Met Gala.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Put a little cherry on the top.
It was BYOG, bring your own guts.
This is the best
Do you hear me?
of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Final hour of the program. We welcome all of you back. It has been a busy day. Probably the biggest story, at least in the SEC, has been the change at the top at the University of Tennessee, the change at the top of the chancellor position, I should say. Beverly Davenport, after a year and 3 months on the job, is out. She has been reassigned after being placed on administrative leave. Whether she ends up teaching at the school, we don't know, but that was the official announcement today from the university president. Let's get back to the calls at 855-242-7285. And John is in Tennessee. John, go right ahead.
Hey, Paul, how are you today?
We're quite well, thank you.
Thank you for taking my call. I haven't called in 2 or 3 weeks. The last time I called in, there was a couple of people tweeted in about my call. And basically all I said was the fact that I don't think UT's pocket passers going to fare good at UT until they get a better O-line, and that I felt like Pruitt should at least play a game before he starts calling the fans out. And there was a couple tweets, one about making fun of some words I used, and another one about that the Pruitt Tennessee honeymoon is over. And actually, I'm a big Pruitt fan. I think he deserves a chance and everything. And then as far as the one tweet about knocking what I said, that looked like from a Hog fan, but it could have been just somebody from UT. But, I just, if it's a Hog fan, I think, they should, worry about calling in about the Hogs and not be knocking me. But what I was going to say was about the Pruitt thing. He's going to get, I've had season tickets, and I've been to individual games. And he's going to get 102, 455 at the SEC games. And you'll get 100,000 at the little paid games, And the fact is, the fans expect him to win if nobody's there. You know what I'm saying? And now he comes out and he says that he didn't come to Tennessee to win 6 or 7 games this year. And I'm just wondering, is that all this? And Fulmer comes out backing him up, knocking the fans. Is this just like setting things up in case everybody thinks all the analysts say that he's going to win about 6, 7 games. So I'm wondering, is he saying this? He didn't come here to win 6 or 7 games just to set things up, like, you know, hey, it's the fans' fault or it's the players' fault. It's not my fault.
John, I don't know really what exactly that means. He's a new coach. He has to find a happy medium in terms of what he says to the fans and what he doesn't. I appreciate your call. Art is calling next. Good afternoon.
Hello, Paul. Listen, thank you very, very much. I'm really trying to cool it down this time of year, like everybody should. And do you like your new Mercedes?
Do I? Yeah, it's great. Thanks for sending it to me.
Yeah, I agree. Here's the thing about gentlemen. In around 1999 or 2000, I had the opportunity to photograph the Regions golf tournament, and I had a spot at the tee-off where you would photograph the two, you know, the pro and the am, and I happened to catch a shot after they left of you and Dubose. And Dubose was a strapping man, and there you were with your head slanted. And if you said a word, I mean, I was barely allowed to take the photographs because I was so loud, and I was totally silent. But there's this time of year where they better realize that you back it up, see, and do you follow me at all?
Well, I definitely remember that round of golf. I sure do.
Were you with Dubose?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That was good stuff. But you must have a mighty fine bathtub now because you sure are happy. I've never seen you more jubilant and more happy. See, I was a big fan of the Birmingham News. I really didn't like the Post-Herald until all that stuff broke. But, you know, that picture of Dubose and you, Dubose had his pose, and he's a big old strapping man, but I just want to remind you that I didn't get my respect from you. I got my respect because of you. And these guys, it's this time of year, so I hate crosstalk.
All right, thank you very much for the call. Appreciate it. Jeff in Columbus, you are on the air. What do you say, Jeff?
What's going on, Paul?
All is well down here.
Man, I sure hope you understood what that guy was talking about because my head's spinning. Man, if I get a little off track here, I'm dizzy.
Just for the sake of the shows, give it your best shot. What was he talking about?
I have no idea other than the golf tournament, your head was sloped to the right or something like that.
I think I had a bad neck that day. It has to be the only explanation.
I think he had a stiff neck or something.
But he did say he thought I was jubilant now.
Yeah. I think you've got to be because, you know, after you get off the phone with Darriel, I'd be jubilant too, man, about this time of day.
Jubilant to be off the phone.
Yeah. Speaking of Darriel, I love how he likes to call in and crack on everybody's football knowledge. I'm still laughing from a week ago when the pasty white guys in the box embarrassed him when they asked him, they spun the tables on him about the 5 Georgia running backs, and basically he said Herschel Walker and whoever those guys are.
Well, played for the old St. Louis Cardinals.
Yeah. Yeah. Then a couple of days later, I know he had you stumped because he tried to attack Ohio State and me by saying, when's the last time Ohio State ever played for a national title?
Oh, yeah, that was great.
Yeah, and I think he forgot we've won 2, played at least for 2 others. We're in the playoffs since his dogs have even sniffed the title.
Yeah, so, he has completely missed the Urban Meyer era at Ohio State.
Yeah, I think he thinks Fickle's still the head coach or something.
Yeah, and when he saw Earl Bruce passed away, he was confused.
Yeah, and the best was tonight. You know he did some research all week and all that.
Yeah.
He thought he'd come in with the Grand Slam walk-off home run about the national titles. And, I mean, the guy's he's just grasping at straws like none other. It's actually pretty comical, isn't it?
Where would our callers be without Wikipedia?
Oh, I know it. Hey, speaking of internet and things like that, I never did talk when you had the conversations about the dwindling college football attendance and the concerns about that.
Right.
And it's so obvious. You've said it a number of times. It's all about TV. And I'm just curious, have you talked to any prominent ADs or Sankey or any of these big-time commissioners? Because obviously, college football and the commissioners sold themselves to the television sets, to the networks, and it makes perfect sense. They've made buku money. To me, the era, when you give some of your older callers and they're 70 and plus, that was the golden era of sports on radio. And guys in their 60s and youngers with ESPN being launched in the late 70s, we've lived the golden era of television, and college football's thrived, made tons of money and all that. And obviously the ADs have loved when they can play both sides of the fence for all these years with sellout crowds, big-time TV ratings. But the prices and everything have gone up so much. Do you still think the ADs are happy that they're probably making more money on television? And are they really that concerned about the
Jeff,
attendance? What do you think? Have you talked to them about that?
Let's isolate this for a second. Let's talk about the league you follow and the league I follow the most. The Big Ten and the SEC, and I do know the numbers. I'm not sure I'm comfortable sharing them, but you do probably have a pretty good idea of the amount of money that the individual schools make just from those college networks alone.
Right.
And if you're Ohio State or Alabama, you start then getting a piece of that college football playoff pie, the Power Six bowl pie. I mean, it is enormous, and it funds a lot of programs at these schools, and that really that will counter some concern, not at Ohio State or Alabama or Georgia, but maybe at some other schools where attendance is maybe dropping off a small percentage. It is a concern, but when you weigh it against the amount of money, this money is it's found money. You know that, and the Big Ten was the first one in the sea when Jim Delaney started that network back 2007, right. I think it was.
Right. And I know I'm a perfect example of what's happened. I mean, I went to every home game. I didn't miss a game. Bought season tickets when I started getting busier, and had conflicts, and the ticket prices are going up, and I was having a hard time selling my tickets. I admit I don't get season tickets anymore because I enjoy when they're not playing a prime time, big time game. I'd rather be sitting at home watching the game but can flip over and watch the big-time SEC 3:30 game. I go to about 1 or 2 games a year, the select, top-line games with Penn State, Michigan, whatever. I'd rather spend my money there, and that's the problem. That's what's happening, I think, with most diehard fans. Most of my friends are telling me, if they haven't already, I'm seriously consider giving up my season tickets and just hand-picking the games I go to. And I think that's obviously where it's gone. Do you really think this whole streaming, is that going to be the next boom era? Because I think even the TV era of sports is kind of starting to wear itself out. I mean, look, nobody watches SportsCenter anymore.
And there are plenty of people that are bigger experts on streaming than I am, but I do think it is the future. And you're right. Just to go to your garden variety Mercer Citadel Alabama game, Ohio State plays 5 or 6 games that we both would agree are unwatchable to stay. Right. I mean, the selection on Saturday, it's starting with the morning shows, the pregame shows. The first game in the Eastern time zone is at noon, and the last game, if you're interested, you can watch a game until 2:00 in the morning. Yeah.
Now, personally, and I don't know if you agree with this, I personally think the NFL has stretched themselves too thin.
It's ridiculous.
I mean, I literally don't know who's playing when. Everybody says, "Well, just look up." When I'm sitting there and I'm not thinking of NFL football on Thursday night. I'll be honest, I'm just not thinking
hard.
About it.
The NFL has diluted its product to such a degree in a money grab, of course.
Right. I'm glad you agree with me on that because I thought that for a while, and they're wondering why their ratings are going down. I think they were better off with a bunch of games at the same time on a Sunday.
Well, really, I think the most watched game on the NFL is the late afternoon game because it ends at 7:30 on Sunday night.
Right,
and that is probably the most watched time of the week. Monday night football, Sunday night football, Thursday night football. I mean, it's just it's diluted the product, and quite frankly, I mean, just. I live in an NFL market where I'm subjected, to games that are just not watchable,
right?
As you are. I mean, Cleveland and just take your pick.
That alone, and what's amazing because of the passionate Browns fan base, they usually trump, no matter their record, they usually trump the Bengals games, even when they're, they haven't won a game for one game in 2 years. But yeah, I just think the whole thing, the dynamics is interesting. It's so obvious, but I got to believe these ADs can't be too disappointed when they're still printing money from the TV
no,
deals.
They're making the number. I mean, you can look it up, Jeff. I mean, the numbers that are coming in, the additional revenue, they're enormous. I mean, they are 5-6 times what they were 10, 15 years ago. We're up against a break. More phone calls at 855-242-7285. It is a Wednesday afternoon, and we've had quite a show. Stick around.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Glad everyone is here. We were just in Ohio. Let's go back to Ohio. John is in Columbus, Ohio as well. Good afternoon, John.
Good afternoon, Paul. Paul, how you doing today?
We are doing great. What about you?
Real quick, I'm doing good. Real quick, the Kentucky Derby, the horse that you picked, I really do like.
Oh, really?
He was. They bought him for $3 million, so he was the most expensive baby of all of them. But I think Todd Pletcher, he'll win it again. He's already won two of them with Vino Rosso. I'm sorry. That's who I'm going with. But my question for you, Michigan got a transfer quarterback from the SEC.
Yeah, Shea Patterson.
How much do you think that will affect how Michigan does this year? And do you think that he will understand in the big game against the Buckeyes, if nobody gets hurt or anything, how important that game is? And I'll hang up and let you answer.
Yeah, first of all, I think it was a significant pickup by Jim Harbaugh. And here we go back to one of the things we were talking about a minute ago about objectivity, and I get criticized about Harbaugh. And I think it was one of the most significant things that has happened to Jim Harbaugh since taking over from Michigan. I know he got Rashawn Gary, the number one player in the country, a couple of years ago. But I think Shea Patterson gives Michigan a chance to finally break through. And I think they're in a really good spot with him at the quarterback. I like Shea a lot. I think he did a great job at Ole Miss. And let's get back to the calls at 855-242-7285. And John is in St. Louis. How are you, John?
I'm doing very well this afternoon, Paul. How are you, sir?
Quite well. Thank you very much for calling.
Paul, I want to talk about the three kings this afternoon. And the first king is, you're maybe about my age, and Roger Miller, King of the Road.
Oh, yeah.
And you probably remember his great music from the early to mid 1960s. And the next one is the King of Beers, which I've had a couple this afternoon, Budweiser. I'm going to give him a picture, calling from St. Louis. And then the other one is, I want to talk a little bit about John Calipari. I don't think people realize about how good they have it in the state of Kentucky in college basketball with Coach Cal. I know he has a record of, getting teams close the last 3 years and not being able to, close that, cross the goal line. But I'm telling you what, if people want to get rid of Cal, I tell you, there's probably 50 programs in the NC2A that would take that guy. All he does is recruit, and win. And so, I mean, Kentucky people, get off it and wake up and smell the coffee, Paul.
Well said. I mean, he has transformed that program. It is always at the center of college basketball, and I completely agree with you on that.
And I can tell you what, being from Missouri and a huge Missouri Tiger basketball fan, compared to what's going on out in Kansas with Mr. Self, Kentucky people, again, you don't know how good you have it. And every time he goes up against Bill Self, he wins 80% of the time.
Well said. Thank you very, very much for the call. That really was a good call. From St. Louis, we go right up the river to Chicago. Hello, Jimmy.
Hey, Paul. Hey, I couldn't help but laugh listening to Darrell's call. You know who Darriel is? He's the kid in your third grade class that when the teacher, gives a question to the class, and probably half the kids in the class know it. Darriel is the one that stands up and yells, Miss Watson, Miss Watson, Miss Watson, I know it. Can you call on me? And he cannot be ignored. And he spends every waking hour trying to find a way to minimize Alabama's status in the college football world. And as far as their national championships go, I mean, I will be the first to tell you that the 1941 national championship, they need to just give that one away yesterday. That's true. But how on earth does the 66 team get completely shut out by not at least getting one or two?
Here's the issue. Alabama has 66, 77? I mean, Alabama has 3 or 4. It doesn't help the matter any, but you're right. When you count the 2-loss, is that a Frank Thomas team in 41? I can't remember.
Well, I mean, they lost 2 or 3 games.
That does need to go. But you know what? Why does it really matter at this point? Because Alabama has dominated college football for the last 10 years. So what happened before most, if not all of us, were born really should cease to matter.
Well, that's where it comes into play, though, with Alabama's 5 championships since 09, and then that 17 number really becomes too much to bear for some rival fan bases. So,
it's mainly Notre Dame. Hey, we're up against a break, Jimmy. Hate to run. Thanks for the call. Much more to come. Final 30 minutes.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a flip.
Welcome back. Glad everyone is here. It's been a good show. We had Michael Collins, the golf caddy, on earlier. Heather Dinnich. We've talked about a lot of the preseason, late spring rankings. Let's get back to the calls. Todd is up next in Birmingham. Hello, Todd.
Hey, Paul. How you doing today?
Quite well. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks for taking my call. I just want to just kind of throw something out there. Your show has meant so much to me and my son over the past several years. I mean, he'd come home from work, and we'd just sit there and enjoy the show and enjoyed everything that you guys do. And tragically, I lost him on February the 5th in a car accident.
Oh, my goodness. We're so sorry to hear that.
But so I had to stay away from the show for a while just because of our connection and what we had. But just over the past couple of weeks, finally cut it back on, and it has really, really helped me get through this.
Todd, how old was your son?
He was 25.
Oh, my goodness. That is just so sad.
And I'm not being a Debbie Downer. Don't get me wrong.
I mean, it's just listen. Number one, I thank you for what you said, and the fact that you had that kind of relationship with your son, and you could watch and take part in here means a lot to us. It's just yeah. I mean, but I really do appreciate your comments, though, and I'm glad. There's no words anyone can offer you. I promise you.
No, it's not, Paul, and I appreciate that. It's just those couple of hours a day that I can sit and just not have anything on my mind, but just enjoy the calls and enjoy the show. And when you look at the big picture, it just it means the world to me, and I appreciate all you guys. Really do.
Well, Todd, listen, we will. And I say this to you. Some days we really wonder about our existence here, and I mean, things are we're just running into walls. But when you say something like that, and I think I speak for everyone here, the guys in the booth, the folks that work behind the scenes, and there are a lot of people. It means so much to us because we normally hear the other side of all this. We rarely get a call like this, and that your comment really resonates with all of us, and I thank you for that. And
well, thank you. Well, thank you guys, and I do enjoy it, and just keep up the good work, and thanks so much for all you guys do.
Todd, you be well. We're thinking of you, and thank you for sharing that story with us.
Thank you very much, Paul.
You bet. Well, I mean, rarely am I at a loss for words. But when you hear a story like that, it really does bring this home. And I listen. I get the criticism. We open ourselves up for that. This is not a traditional program, but Todd's comments really do hit all of us. Thank you very much again, Squirrel. You're on the air. Go right ahead.
Man, that was a deep call, and people are so comfortable with you, they don't mind talking about things of that nature.
Well, thank you for saying that. I mean, we joke, and I know you better than most because I've met you before.
Yeah.
But I mean, we try to be different here, Squirrel, and a lot of people just want to talk about how it's not any good and used to be better. But I think we're doing okay.
Yeah, I got 2 kids. Exactly. I'll talk to you later, Paul.
Thanks, Squirrel. I certainly understand that. That's Jeff is up next in Georgia. Jeff, go right ahead.
Thank you, Paul. First-time caller.
Thank you.
Boy, tell you, I was going to get on somebody from Columbus, and after all this, buddy, it's kind of hard. Roll Tide, you hear me?
I hear you loud and clear.
And I've got a new name for our Columbus, Georgia boy that I've been listening to for years. And I got a lot of great friends that's Georgia fans, and they hate him. And I can understand why. And I mean, we hunt together all the time. My wife's even an Auburn fan, He's lacking morals is exactly what he's lacking, is moral. He has never been brought up ex-Marine or whatever he is. Mullet head. So he never remembered either in his conversation today. What about when they gave Georgia number 1 when we were on our bye?
Oh, yeah.
Would Malzahn still be there if he beat the number 1 and number 2 team?
Probably not.
Think about it, But no, I've been listening to you, Paul, for years. I just wanted to get a little comment from Mullet Head, and maybe y'all will start calling him that every time he calls in, because I'm not going to lower myself to his level, but I can. But I'm just been I lived in Columbus, Georgia since 1962, and I've always been an Alabama Roll Tide, and got many of friends that's Georgia fans, and we never have a problem with guns in our hands or drinking alcohol. He needs to get him some morals. I know he's good ratings for your show, but still, But I just want to let you know that I'm not going to hold y'all up. And that was 2 great calls you had ahead of me. So,
Thank you very much for the call.
Yes, sir, Paul. Thank you.
Be well. Thanks. Cheerleader's up next.
Hey there, Paul. How you doing?
We're doing great, Cheerleader.
Paul, listening to the Squirrel and Todd, I just think your show does give so many males a chance to explain themselves with gratitude and hurt and whatever, and it just shows such a human side. And I just feel for people that have that to go through. But I do think that you need to give yourself some credit for kind of holding it up and giving them a place to vent. And I mean, the females love your show too, but for the males to call in like that, that's just great. And I just wanted to tell you this little story about, now, Paul, you do know that I talk to just about everybody I run into. You understand?
I understand.
Kind of like when you go to the grocery store and somebody's bringing your groceries out and this and that. Well, usually the grocery stores I go to, the people that are stacking your groceries are students, typically high school students or early college. And so I want to talk to them and ask them what school they're in and what are their subjects they like to what are their, what subjects they do the best in and like. And I was talking to this fella yesterday to show you how far and wide football reaches so many people other than those on the field. I said, what are your interests? He said, I like the band. I said, where do you go to school? Shades Valley High School. I'm in the band. And he said, I'm trying to make good grades. He said, I made a real good grade on my ACT test, a real good grade, and I'm trying to get a scholarship to go to the University of Alabama to play in the band so I can be in the marching band for the next national championship.
That is great.
I thought that was pretty cool, and I hope to goodness he gets it. And put me on your calendar for when you come down to the golf tournament.
Oh, we'll be there 2 weeks. By the way, I was in Birmingham Saturday, but I was.
Well, thank you for telling me.
Well,
That's
it was.
okay.
I was there at a banquet, so I did not get out beyond the whole. But I will be there in 2 weeks, and
well, you put me on the calendar for when you want me out there.
I was going to ask you to show me around.
I will.
I'll see you 2 weeks from today. I'll let you know when we're.
All right.
You got it.
Okay.
Thanks, Juliet. Appreciate the call.
Bye.
You bet. Great to hear from you. How about Gator in Memphis? Go right ahead.
Hey, what's going on?
How are you, Gator?
I'm doing all right. I want to respond to some comments you made yesterday about the Tennessee-Florida game. You said something about that they're doable. I don't agree with that because I think Tennessee's just as doable as Florida is. Your comment is, and Pruitt hasn't proven himself as a head coach. Just not giving him that much praise just yet. And I'll hang up and let you listen to you guys. Go Gators.
Yeah, I was just simply saying that Tennessee had to find a win there somewhere to get to 6 wins, and I just said I would pick Florida today. I'm not trying to come off of what I said. I just said that's a game that you just don't know about right now. It's a home game. It's a rivalry game. Certainly Florida on paper is a better team, but your team was 4-8 last year, Gator, before you start beating your chest. I realize your coach is accomplished, but don't act like Jeremy Pruitt isn't accomplished. He is. Steve is in Destin. Go right ahead.
Hey, Paul. How you doing?
Hey, Steve. Welcome to the show.
Hey, listen, the guy from Notre Dame, I want to refer to a call you got many years ago. He is an imbecile. And this guy, he lectured us on the information age. And if he would go to the NCAA website and hit on it and then hit championships, you'd see that we have at least 15 or 16. I can't remember. I hadn't looked at it lately, and I don't know if they've updated it yet. But that's a very simple way, and they're a lot more authority than Notre Dame in this cat. But I do have a question. Is it true that every player that Saban has recruited, not including junior college, if they stayed and played through their junior year, would they have a national championship ring?
That is true.
That's every player since he stepped on.
No, that is absolutely true, Steve. I mean, if you think about his championships, he got there for the 07 season. He won in 9, 11, 12, and then you had the gap to 15 and then 17. So, yeah, it is absolutely true.
And, what a great recruiting tool. They talk about the pipeline to the NFL, and that's great. But a lot of kids realize they're not going to make it to the pros. But that ring means a lot.
Yeah, that number came out when they went to the White House a couple of weeks ago, and it's an extraordinary number. We're up against a break, a couple of minutes remaining on this Wednesday afternoon, almost Wednesday night. We're coming right back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Put a little cherry on the top.
Welcome back as we wind things down here on this Wednesday afternoon. Stan is calling next. Good afternoon, Stan. How are you?
Hey, Paul. First-time caller.
Thank you.
I used to read your articles in the Mobile paper back when it was a 7-day-a-week paper, and I used to live up in Sweetwater. And I had a friend up there that would always complain. You could get the Alabama-Auburn fans really stirred up with some of the things that you wrote, and my friend, he'd be like, I can't stand that Paul Finebaum. And I was like, really? I was like, do you read his articles every week? He's like, yeah, I read them. I was like, I really doubt if he cares if you like him or not. I think he just wants you to read his articles and talk about it. So,
thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's really funny. I ran into some people the other day that talked about my writing. I've forgotten I used to write. That was how I got started as a sports writer. But thank you for reminding me.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun watching you move into radio and then to ESPN. I have about a 15-minute commute home every afternoon, so I always listen to you. I get about a 15 or 20-minute dose every day, so enjoy the program.
Thank you very much, and I certainly hope that wasn't the police pulling you over for talking while driving. Anyway, let's talk to Razorback at OKC. What's going on?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Had to get through. Just curious about what you think about the Arkansas hire for head coach.
I think it was a good hire. I think Arkansas was desperately needing a change, Razorback. And Chad Morris is a very attractive, bright coach. I think he will take some time, though, and I assume and I'm hopeful that Razorback fans will be patient. Alex is in Galveston. Galveston.
Hey, what's up,
How are
Paul?
you? Good afternoon.
I just want to get your opinion on what do you think of the new Texas A&M hiring Jimbo Fisher?
I think it's one of the best hires of the year. I think Jimbo is a phenomenal coach, and this is a great spot. I think Texas A&M is a sleeping giant. The Sumlin story just played out poorly in the end, and I think Scott Woodward and the administration there made a killer hire.
Yeah, I think they did too. I don't know. I think they may make a run-in for one of the top 4 spots this season. So that's hopefully what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, I just wish the schedule wasn't as difficult. Clemson on there is probably about as bad a draw as you could. I mean, well, it is the worst draw you could get. The only good thing is it's at home. Could be worse on the road, but probably not that much worse. Thank you for the call. Do appreciate it. Gary is in Georgia. You're on the air. Go right ahead, Gary.
Hey, Paul, this is Greg.
Greg, I'm sorry. I don't know why. Greg, thank you for the call.
Hey, I was just letting you know I was sitting here swatting a stink bug. You know, stink bug that gets in your house in the South. That reminds me of Jeff. He's about like a stink bug. He's gonna live in the South and talk about another team that irritates him.
And by the way, what happens if you swat a stink bug in your house?
Well, what you do is when you swat it, don't pick it up with your fingers. You
really?
Use a napkin because they stink. Do you know what a stink bug is?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen them, but I just really never knew the intricacies of what to do and what not to do.
Use a napkin and flush them, toilet paper, whatever. Don't touch them because they stink. That reminds me of Jeff. You know, somebody that lives in the state of Georgia and go pull up Alabama. Does he not realize we were one play away? One play away of winning the national championship, and he's going to talk shit about a mullet? So, I'm glad they won it. I really am. But I'm going to tell you something. If you're going to live in the state of Georgia and pull up on that, move. Move.
Moo or move?
Move. Or
Okay.
I got cows, too, yeah.
I bet we're in Georgia. Well, you're gone. Who cares where you live? Jonathan, not a lot of time, but you're the last caller of the evening. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. A sporadic listener and occasional caller. I've called to help on the pick on Darriel for Columbus, from Columbus, Georgia Day.
Yeah, what about it?
Yeah, so checking facts here. We got last 50 games they've played, 34-16-1 if we count the tie.
Wow. Sorry to run off, but we're done with time. Have a great evening.
Thank you for listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast. The Paul Finebaum Show airs weekdays on the SEC Network, beginning at 3 Eastern.